Welcome back to Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. We're going to talk about Governor Cuomo, whether or not he should resign. We're going to talk about Delta Plus and what that means to the world right now. For those of you who don't know, the Delta variant was updated and renamed. So we're going to talk about kind of
it was almost upgraded.
It was almost like you know how like you leave your iPhone like by your bed at night and then you get like the upgraded like notification. It was almost like that, but worse. And then we're going to talk about an interesting topic that I think most people are not aware of. Most people know about college athletes getting paid, but it might be trickling down even further than what the NCAA initially intended. So a couple of fun topics today, but before we get to anything else, Mark, how are you feeling? I'm nervous about you today. I'll just throw that out there for the record. You're very stoic, stone-faced, like just kind of like, I just was a little nervous when I first got on.
This is what happened.
Real quick. How are you feeling today?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm real good.
All right.
We're pre-game.
Okay.
And I'm reading.
Okay.
On my phone to, educate myself, enlighten myself.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, you found this so shocking that you like almost called 911. And you're like, dude, are you okay? And I was like, I'm reading.
You didn't crack a joke. You didn't smile. I was nervous about it.
I was reading. Like when you get to page, are you like,
is it that?
Time for knock, knock. Who's there?
I mean, I guess the real question is it that painful? You make it look painful.
I don't really like to read. That I'm not going to debate that.
Okay, but that's all right. That's good. Coming from an author, that's good to know.
I do. I like to write much more than I like to read, which is odd.
So you brought this up to me, and I do think it's an interesting topic. I kind of have. I don't want to say I have a different take on it, but I think how most people are looking at this is more from like a headline standpoint. I'm curious to talk about it from like an actual like interpersonal Governor Cuomo standpoint, but kind of run people through kind of what happened and kind of your take on it initially.
Well, I mean, the funny thing about Cuomo, and when we were kids, it was Mario Cuomo. It's his kid, I assume, and he was either mayor of New York or guy. I don't know, but this is a family. It's almost like the Kennedys.
Yeah.
And there was a moment during this last spring, he was charismatic, he was outspoken, he had that New York, like he was the shining star of the Democratic Party, and people were talking about, presidential runs, and then all of a sudden these sexual harassment things come out, and it has been bad for him ever since. And the Attorney General came out and corroborated a lot of the stories of inappropriate touching with multiple people, and now Biden is calling for him to resign, and Nancy Pelosi is calling for him to resign. And the big deal about that is he is a Democrat. And no matter what side of the fence you're on, if the big wigs of your party are calling for you to resign, that's a problem.
No, it's a serious problem. Has he come out and said anything about it yet? Because I have not had a chance to read anything today.
I think CNN covered it. I think where I read it, and they talked about, I think it was, the headline was his disastrous response.
Okay.
And so I think there's a press conference at some point today. I know you're going to be shocked by this. When the allegations first came out, he said, no one rushed to judgment. Wait till the Attorney General's report comes out. Now the Attorney General's reports come out, and now he's claiming it's biased and it's all this stuff. So,
yeah.
I mean, what can you say? There's, again, there's 9 women or 11 women who have come forward.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't take, we're old enough to know if there's 9 or 11 coming forward, there's more than that are too embarrassed. They don't want their husband, and just whatever the case may be.
Right.
So,
This is the interesting one, because I do want to answer the actual question on the screen and whether or not he should consider resigning. You and I talked about this, and this to me is the saddest part. Like we talked about Cosby a couple of weeks ago, and now speaking about this, like you start doing the math on some of this stuff. And the scariest part to me is once you start to do the math, you begin to realize like these people are all around you. And like you walk through your day and you walk through life and it's just something that you kind of put in the back, like you just kind of block it off. Like you just don't think about these things. But like when it keeps popping back up with these celebrities or entertainers or politicians, you begin to realize like there must be an X percentage of people that you walk by every day in your normal life that this is like a common occurrence that they either are doing or a victim of. Or so it's, for me, like, I guess what I am learning more than anything else is how more prominent this is. And I think some of that is me like coming of age, like kind of getting older. But I also think some of it too is like people speaking out and coming forward. And so like that's the scary part to me, is I think this is so much more prominent than we could even begin to think. You and I kind of dove into the actual like mathematics of it, and I don't want to go that far on here, but like it's so much more prominent.
Yes, and I think to take a different spin to it, when I was thinking about this, whether it be Cosby, whether it be Weinstein, whether it be Cuomo or people, or even Matt Lauer, any of these guys that get into positions of authority, when they're having these relationships in the office place and with subordinates, it is, I'm assuming that throughout their careers, there have been subordinates who were willing and had consensual relationships. So the issue has really become with all these guys, when someone says no, that they're not used to in their world of people saying no to them, and they can't emotionally deal with it. And that's really the craziness of the not being just drunk on power and being so used to like, hey, there's a new intern. Hey, we did it. Hey, and how many staffers and how many co-workers and whatever did Cuomo fondle that never said anything, that didn't care, or whatever. And so, I mean, that's the other aspect of it. You'd think like, and this is probably a bad example, but it's the one I'm coming up with off the top of my head because we're just thinking out loud here. As a normal person, you're thinking Bill Cosby, I'm sure in his heyday, could have found hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of willing participants. So why is he going and drugging the unwilling participants? Like that's the monstrous aspect of this.
Right. Yes. There's a psychological side there that it's hard to necessarily tap into, because like to even get onto that level. But to your point, there's a monster side to that, where like I said to you, the worst part about Cosby was people trusted him. And so like you could say in some of the stuff like Governor Cuomo, whether it's staffers or coworkers, whoever it may be, I'm sure there were points where people trusted him, and just like, I don't know. I mean, I'll leave it at that. Here's the question that we asked was, should Governor Cuomo consider resigning? And this is like kind of like, I don't want to say the other side, but the angle of it from a like morality side, from a human side of it. Personally, I think absolutely he should resign. Not that he's going to be able to save face, but it's kind of just like the fall on your sword, like at least at the very end, do the right thing. But from like a political standpoint, like you can't resign. Like to resign admits defeat. To resign, you're leaving a pedestal that you will never get back to. So there is like, when you say like, should he consider resigning? Morality, human-wise, yes. From a political standpoint, I don't think he can. Like if he's really worried about I'm just saying, like, what are the other options? If that's
I don't know about it. We are a forgiving country. When you look at didn't, and I can't think of his first name. Was it Weiner?
Anthony.
Isn't he back?
I don't know. In what capacity, I'm unsure of.
You get guys, and I know this wasn't criminal. This was just more scandalous, but Marv Albert had his run, and now Marv Albert has come back, and in the political world, Marion Barry won again in Washington, D.C. eventually, I think.
Yeah.
After he was caught, I think, with the hooker and drugs in the hotel room, because he has the famous quote that says, "The bleep set me up." And then I think he won again like 10 years later.
Maybe. This is like the Marv Albert is like a good example. But the difference with Marv is he wasn't making choices for citizens. Like he wasn't being elected, and he wasn't then making policy or like deciding important things. He was just announcing basketball games. So the difference with this is like to the governor of New York, like I don't see how he ever comes back from that if he admits. Because again, resigning admits to it. Like resigning admits that he feels he is unfit for that office. And once he admits to that, I don't know if there's any bouncing back from it. And again, this isn't me claiming like I want him to or not want him to. Like I'm not putting like a flag on my Governor Cuomo stance. I'm just simply saying like if I was a political advisor to him, like I don't know if you can resign and ever really get back. Because you said it. A year ago was like almost like the peak of it. Like he was the face of the party for a hot second.
And your point that as I'm thinking through this, the point you make that is good, and I agree with this. All the examples I gave, none of them were about sexual harassment. You know, I mean, Marion Barry's with a hooker in a hotel room doing blow. I mean, as much as you're like that, that's not who I want for the mayor. It's different. So I'm trying to think of someone who came back from a sexual harassment here in the Me Too era, and I can't come up with any of, and we've talked about, I just said Matt Lauer and Kevin Spacey, and obviously Weinstein's in prison. And so, yes, the spin that he could take is just to say, obviously, we have some discrepancies and there have been times I've acted inappropriately. I don't think like all the things they're accusing me of isn't true, but for the sake of the party, for the good of my state and for the good of the party, I'm going to step aside and let them. And I think if he kind of apologizes and takes the high road, then I think there's a chance. I don't think he can weather this storm. Not in today's day and age.
Neither do I. And so I guess the point I'm making is like from a political aspect, like I think you almost just have to like, what do they say when you're on the boat? Like board down the hatchets and you're just piling through. Because I just don't politically, I don't see how there's a comeback.
But correct. But could there be a comeback as a pundit?
Possibly. Maybe.
So I think
I don't
in
know
that
though.
aspect, I don't know either.
Yeah.
But I think.
And by the way, we're not implying he should. Like we're just simply saying like
resign.
We're not implying that like he should like be able to come back or that he should just be like excused or forgiven. No. We're just simply saying like if we were his political advisor, I don't know if I don't like consider resigning. Like okay, then what? Like what is the answer after that if you resign? So I personally like unless it gets to the point where like he literally just can't walk down the street, I don't see him resigning.
But I think he has to. And I think the party is going to pressure him. He just doesn't. I just can't believe he carries any weight.
Yeah. See, I from the party aspect, I get your point. But from like the egocentric, like from the individual side of it, like just his political individualism, like I don't see how he can resign and think he's ever going to really like get back into it.
Yeah, it'll be. He's supposed to make statements, and I'm sure he's going to come out and say the lawyers have told me I can only say so much. I'm sure he's going to hide behind that. I shouldn't say it. Well, I'm sure. I'm speculating, but that's kind of what happens in these things. So, no, I think he's done. I think it's just a matter of time.
Yes. I don't know if you woke up. We said today there is a Delta Plus. So we had COVID-19. We had the Delta variant. And when I woke up this morning, it was being reported South Korea's Disease Control and Prevention Agency said Tuesday that it had recorded at least 2 cases of the new coronavirus Delta Plus variant. I have some questions. I don't understand who names this stuff. Is it like hurricanes where like there's a procedure? Like, you know how when they name hurricanes, it's like alphabetical order and like there's like
good question.
So I don't know how they're deciding to name this stuff because naming it is critical to like how people read about this, how seriously people take it, how not seriously people take it. But right now online, Delta Plus is like a running joke. Like nobody is taking this seriously. Like when you read through online and I'll be honest with you, even like major news networks aren't exactly sure how to cover this or how to handle it like in a serious manner.
Well, I think we've come Yeah, I agree with it. But I don't even know if they come out with a new name, with a new, like, people are so tired of it.
Yeah.
And with every new variant that comes out, here's what they say. They don't know how the vaccine will work against it. No kidding. Like,
Right.
of course they don't. So I don't know. I think as we move forward, and I kind of talked to you about this off the air, I think the big question moving forward is there's kind of this of to keep telling people to go get vaccinated, go get vaccinated, go get vaccinated. Kind of like the people at this point, they ain't getting vaccinated, ain't doing it. And
Sure.
I think there's a responsibility to the public to keep posting statistics and to keep giving data. But I don't like there's a point where people you dig in the argument, you know, when your mom's like, take the trash out, take the trash out, take the trash out, take the trash out, and you tell like I'm going to, and then after a while you're just like, I'm not doing it just because you've told me to do it so many times. And the people that haven't got a vaccine yet aren't being swayed. They're not going to be swayed now. They're just going to be more and more obstinate. And now if kind of there's a point that if they don't shut up, then they're never going to listen to anything they say beyond this. So I think there's that value. Like, it's out there. You do with it what you will. But, you know, I'm just going to shut up now. And I wonder if as a society, if that's the right way to go, or do we just keep like, get the vaccine, get the vaccine, get the vaccine?
We were actually just talking about this a little bit ago here at the camp, like some of the counselors and different people. I do like, there almost has to be like this middle road, this like middle ground. It just feels like we're never going to get off the treadmill. And I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a politician. There are people much, much smarter than me that are hopefully working on this and figuring this stuff out.
Well, I thought you were going to say on this show.
Yeah, well, no. But what I do know, and what most people that I've talked with agree with, is like this middle ground, like this idea of like some people getting vaccinated, some people not. Some people having to wear masks and some not. And this idea of like ever getting to a point where everybody is safe, it's just not feasible. It isn't. And so like, I don't even know where, because you can see it coming. Like you can already see that this fall and this winter, they're on pace to be much more like last fall and last winter than what anybody expected. Is that a fair statement? It's just where it's heading. And I just, like we've talked before about how I said to you, I don't know if people are going to be willing to participate in the steps they took a year ago. Now the conversation for me has turned more so just like, are we at the point now where it's almost like we need to do everything or nothing, and it can't be this middle road anymore? And I'll tell you right now, it can't be everything. Like you are not going to be able to mandate that everybody gets a vaccination. You're not going to mandate that everybody has to wear a mask. So if that's the case, I'm over the middle road. I don't know where else to go other than to say, like, it is what it is.
There's a lot to that. Yeah. I mean, because nobody knows the answer. But there is, if people that aren't vaccinated aren't going to get vaccinated, then what do you do? What's the next step?
And and to me, the answer isn't to make vaccinated people wear masks. The answer isn't to make businesses shut down. Like, I don't know the answers. What I do know, though, is I don't think people are going to participate the second time around. And if they aren't going to participate the second time around, you really have one choice. You either have to mandate it, or it has to kind of be a free-for-all. And so, like, you can't mandate it. You cannot mandate everybody to do this.
Well, I think people will. I think if they make it like this is what they recommend. You do what you want, but this is what we recommend. I think a lot of people will do it. I just had a conversation with Carrie yesterday. I think forever now in the winter, when people are grocery stores and people are Walmarts and Targets and all these places, you're going to see a percentage of people who just wear masks during the cold and flu season. And I think you're going to see the screens that the plexiglass in front of the checkout people at the grocery stores, just because it has to help to whatever degree, I don't know, but it has to help. So no, I think you're going to see people who wear masks and you're going to see people who don't, but I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I don't know the mandation. I don't know. Is mandation a word? I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I agree. The point that you're making is people are making the choice to do it. And that I don't disagree with. I agree with you. Like, there will be people during flu and cold season that were like, hey, it was really nice not getting sick last winter. Like, I think I'm going to do it again. I totally get that. I just think from like an administration standpoint, for cities, for states, for the country, like, I just don't know. Like, we've seen Louisiana just put masks back in place. New York City just came out and they're doing, did you see that? The New York City pass. So New York City is doing it where you have to be vaccinated to basically do like indoor dining, entertainment, larger gatherings like indoor this fall and winter. And that's this, like, to me, like, that's some of those things where like I am curious to see where it goes, because that is certainly not what the majority of us thought we would be like in the fall and this winter. Not 2 years afterwards.
I think part of it too that people get lost in, and this is just my belief, but the fear is we need a medical system that works, and we need a hospital system that when somebody has a heart attack or somebody goes into labor or somebody has a catastrophic injury and they need emergency care, that they can be taken care of. And part of if the ICU is already overflowed with COVID patients, then they can't care for the other patients. And I think that's part of the underlying fear. It's not about, your rights or my rights, or I should be able to do whatever I want to do. Right. It's the hospital system needs to work in the way it was meant to work. And if it's full of COVID people, then it can't take care of the other people who need it.
Sure. It's going to be fascinating. Are high school athletes about to get paid? So for those of you who don't know, the NCAA opened up the floodgates it's been about a month now, I believe. And basically what they did was NIL rules. You are allowed to use your name and likeness to turn a profit. So college athletes now can have a sponsor. They can sign autographs. They can sell merchandise. They can do all these things. And while a lot of us knew what was going to happen, I don't know if the NCAA knew to what extent it was. Literally, I would argue 1,000+ athletes overnight became millionaires. A lot of Division I quarterbacks, a lot of Division I basketball players, different athletes across the country immediately jumped on sponsorships, merchandise, all different types of deals, and became millionaires overnight. What you and I have noticed recently, and if you're keeping track of it online, is that this is trickling down into high school athletics. You and I were talking recently about a Texas quarterback who is foregoing his senior year of high school. And the reason he is doing it is so that he can accept sponsorships.
Yes, he is. So I guess this is the way, and you can clarify this. Mm-hmm. He was about to be a starting senior quarterback in Texas, correct?
Yes, correct.
But the state of Texas has rules about high school athletes and making money. Correct. And he is already committed to go to Ohio State.
Yes, correct? He's the number one quarterback in the country committed to Ohio State.
So he has said, well, then I just won't play high school football.
Yes.
And I will start collecting money because I am the next chosen one at Ohio State. So as a high school kid, he's still in high school. He didn't get to graduate early. He still has to take his credits.
Right.
But they said to him, you could either play or you could go sign this deal with whomever and make $500,000 because the Ohio State people love you already and they've never seen you in person. Right. So he turned it down. And yes, there's no doubt the NCAA moves at a snail's pace, and they had no idea any of this was coming. They never to the extent. And now, as you said, it trickles down to high school because high school athletics, the high school kids couldn't do anything because they didn't want to, back in the day, they couldn't do anything shady because they didn't want to lose their college eligibility. Yes. Well, now they can take money from anybody because they can't lose their college eligibility. Correct. Because you're allowed to do it in college.
there was almost an imaginary security blanket over, like in Pennsylvania, the PIAA was covered because the NCAA had these rules in place. So the PIAA basically said, well, don't do anything stupid because then you won't be able to get your college scholarship. And that security blanket is completely gone. Gone. Evaporated.
And so now I'm sure all these states, like you said, take the PIAA never had to investigate this because there was nothing to investigate because college basically did it for them.
Yes.
And if there's any impropriety, they could kind of backtrack it through. They don't have a governing body or a policing body. So if Joe Schmo goes and, with a local subway where some guy owns 6 subways in the greater State College area, and whoever the best athlete or, there are high school kids that are going to be making money, and not just the PIAA, but every state now is scrambling to try to figure out how to prevent it. And on the flip side, now you look at Texas, we have the best quarterback, we have the best high school quarterback prospect in the country. Now he's not playing. Is that good for Texas?
No, it's not good for Texas. And it's not going to be good for any state that stops high school kids from making money. Unless all the states get together and try to come up with it doesn't have to be uniform across the board, but there's going to have to be some type of consistency, because what kids are going to start doing is they're going to start attending school. It's already happening. Kids from New Jersey and Maryland go to schools in Philadelphia and they participate in the PIAA every year. It happens every year. And they're not even incentivized financially yet. They're only incentivized to try to get into college or a scholarship offer. Now, if you start adding in sponsorship money and things like that, if Maryland says, hey, there's no amateurism rules in our high school athletics, you can take a sponsorship, you can sell merchandise and still participate. What kid from Harrisburg, what top recruit from Harrisburg is not going to go to a school in Maryland? They're going to do it. So if you're a state, you really need to consider, if you're trying to protect your high school athletics, you really need to consider allowing these kids to not be amateurs, because otherwise it's already happening. They're leaving. They're going to go. Now, it doesn't mean for 80%, 85% of high school athletes, this does not pertain to them. There's no financial gain for them to find. However, for the top 15, 20%, there absolutely is. We have a local athlete here in Lycoming County. He got offered a Division I scholarship. He went from 2,000 Instagram followers to almost 12,000. So he gained 10,000 Instagram followers overnight from one Division I offer. And 12,000 Instagram followers is a financial windfall. He can make substantial money off of that depending on what he decides to do. So this is happening. This is the weird part. This isn't one of those things where it's going to happen 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. This is already happening underneath the PIAA. I just don't know if they realize that the windfall is happening right now.
No, I agree. And I'm thinking even on the small levels, and I'm sure this happens in places all over the place, but how many you get to small town America, which is what we live in, and some guy that owns a pizza shop on the corner who played high school basketball or who was a wrestler or was a football player back in the day, who now just has a deal with, every varsity kid on, the night after the game can come eat for free. Right. And they just fill up the place with, because the varsity players can eat for free. And that's part of the, you're going to see it at all kinds. The other thing I was thinking was you get to private schools, and public schools are going to be different because they still have transfer rules and things like that. But you take a private school, some of these little Catholic schools like St. John Newman or Lourdes Regional down in Shamokin, and say they have a rich alum, and this rich alum loved basketball. And he's like, okay, I'm going to give, whatever. I'm going to give $30,000 a year to the basketball program. The top 15 kids in the basketball program are each going to get $2,000. Or all the varsity kids get $5,000. The JV kids get $1,000 or something like that. And I mean, it sounds absurd, But when you get these super rich alumni, like we had a very wealthy alumni at Susquehanna, and who just gave, I mean, he had hundreds of millions of dollars. He just gave money to the college. So when you get these really rich alumni to do something like that, and in our world, we don't see it possible. In the cities and in the larger metropolitan areas where there's so much wealth, it's going to happen.
Oh, it's happening. Like I am here, like I am waving the flag, like it is happening. So I'm just, and this is the other part too. Like people say like, well, the PIAA will put something in place. I cannot even begin to fathom how much it would cost the PIAA to try to police this. Like the manpower and the hours it would take to actually like govern individually the amateurism of every high school athlete is almost like you can't do it. I would argue it is an impossible task. Impossible.
And what it's also going to do, and we could do a whole segment on this, is what it's going to do to amateur sports. Because one of the things you are going to see is, I think you're going to see even more specialization than we already do, because parents are going to see that, like, you're going to have high school kids who are making thousands and thousands of dollars in high school playing these sports.
Yes.
And so if you're a kid who is a really good wrestler and you've got some chance to be, to make this much money wrestling, are you really playing football? Or are you like, listen, I'm going to go to wrestling tournaments through all the fall and I'm going to make sure I don't get hurt. So I think you're going to see a lot more specialization. And as crazy as parents already were, it's just going to make it worse, because before they were just playing for this mythical scholarship.
Right. Now
they're playing for a paycheck that they can cash and spend.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're out there. Like the sponsors, like the advertising dollars, like it is out there. And I'm telling you, it is already trickling down. There are high school athletes, not just nationally, because we've seen the stuff. Some high school kid signed, it was like a $2 million deal with overtime. And he's not going back to high school. He's 16. He's not going back to high school because the state that he was in would not allow him to play if he wasn't an amateur. And so like it's happening. This is what I would say. And this is 100% an opinion. If I were the PIAA, you almost have to get rid of the transfer rules. You almost need to allow kids the freedom to go to the school of their choice, a public school, whether it's a public school, a Catholic school, whatever it is. You almost need to get rid of the transfer rules and allow kids, like you almost need it to be more user-friendly in state. Because otherwise, these kids are leaving the state. We already have kids that are leaving the state because they're afraid they're not going to be eligible. So our best football and basketball players, they're going and playing in Florida because the rules are less stringent. They're going and playing in Texas because the rules are less stringent. So we're losing our best athletes already as it is. But you're going to start to lose even more because kids are going to say, well, at this school, I can't get this sponsorship or I can't get this deal. It's going to happen. They need to get rid of the transfer rules. They need to get rid of the amateurism rules. And they're just going to have to start rolling with this. Otherwise, high school sports are going to get watered down quickly.
Well, I disagree. The way I think now they need to make a division between public and private schools, because you don't want areas where one wealthy alumni that all the good basketball players in one area go to the same school.
But what I would say,
why
limit that to the Catholics and the preps? Like if a public school has a wealthy alum and that's what they want to do, why can't a public school do that?
Because it ruins it. Because then, I mean, you talk about watered down, then you're going to have it's the haves and the have-nots, and then the have-nots, the kids wouldn't even play. Because, you would have the best, some coach with the best 10, he would just go around and take the best 10 eighth graders.
It's already happening. Happens.
It's not happening here.
When you say here, like where is here?
In central Pennsylvania.
I mean, it's not happening on the same scale, but it's happening.
Well, and what happens in Philadelphia, I don't know. But if it happened.
Like tell the coaching staff at Williamsport that it's not happening. Tell the coaching staff at Williamsport that it's not happening in North Central Pennsylvania.
Well, but that's because they're going to a private school, and that's always going to exist. I get that. But what you don't want is that if you have a really good basketball player at Southside and he's like, well, I could start at Loyal Sock. I'll just go to Loyal Sock because now nobody's playing at Southside. And so now you have this super team at Loyal Sock who is competing, but everyone around, it's like, well, what's even the use? Because we just lost our best player and we just lost our best player and we just lost and each sport would almost have their specialized, if you're a good girls softball player, you're going to Jersey Shore. And if you're a good boys soccer player, you're going here. And then each team would have one.
But then your kids are staying locally, whereas I guess it depends on what your definition of locally is, because to me, we're already losing like the best kids. Like if you're Waynesport, you already feel like you're losing some of your best kids to a private school.
But they're not losing them out of state.
Right. Yet, which is my whole point. Like, this is all I'm saying is you need to set up a system where the public schools are able to do the same things that the Catholics and the charters are. Because otherwise, to your point, you're going to have a watered down system. And so if you want to split them in half and you want to say public over here, Catholics and charters over here, that's fine. But that is a watered down system. Like, it's not like those two sides are fair. Like, one side is very clearly the B level and the other side is very clearly the A level. And so what I am saying is, if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to split it down the middle and have public B over here and private A over here, then you need to make it so that publics have the same ability as the preps and the charters in the Catholic schools. Otherwise, what you're describing is happening right now anyway. It's already happening.
See, I disagree. Name one kid that's ever gone to Newman to play basketball that didn't live in Williamsport.
There's lots of kids that like from Muncie or Montoursville. Like there's kids from Newman from all over. There's kids that go to Newman that are from Loyal Sock. But there's nobody.
There has been no great like junior high basketball player that has gone to Newman from anywhere except Williamsport.
I can tell you, even like 20 years ago, there was like a kid from Wellsboro that went to Newman to play with I hate dropping names, but when Litchfield was the coach at Newman, and there was a kid from Wellsboro that went to play with Litchfield, and the point I'm making to you is because recently there's an NBA player who lived in Williamsport, who happened to go to Newman. The idea of it is they're just getting these kids from Williamsport. That doesn't mean that they're not capable of getting them from somewhere else, and it doesn't mean that they haven't. It doesn't mean they haven't done it in the past.
But yes, but of all the success that Newman's
real quick, because I do want to hear about. By the way, I'm not implying Newman's doing anything wrong. Newman's playing fairly. Newman's doing what they're allowed to do.
But what I'm saying is Newman, it's not like if you're in South Williamsport, if you're in Montgomery, you're in Muncie, you're in Hughesville, you're not sitting there thinking, oh, I've got this really good 5th grader, 6th grader, 7th grader. He's going to Newman, because none of the other, you haven't lost any. We haven't lost any. None of the Jersey Shore hasn't lost any.
Yes. But you're confusing what has happened versus what they are allowed to do or capable of doing. So for example, it's not if Newman wanted to go do that, they could.
They could try.
Legally. That's correct. And so what I'm saying is we are to the point now where the way the system is set up and how high school students are going to be able to now financially benefit from some of this stuff, you almost have to make it so that the public schools have the same flexibilities as the private schools. Because I'm telling you right now, the private schools have a head start. They do. They have sponsors. They're allowed to play by a different set of rules. They have a head start on the public schools.
And in certain areas of the state where the private schools are predominant, then that's fine. Right now, to do that in our region, in North Central PA, in our 12-county region, there's no need to, because the private schools are not going to take over. They aren't.
I would argue that
unless they're the only ones that can pay. But as long as the public schools can pay and kids can't transfer, then you take there's a big commitment for parents to sell their house, buy a new house, move the kid to another district, as opposed to just drive them across a bridge.
I think that it's significantly more than what we think it is. If you ask Shamokin how they feel about private schools, they probably don't love them. And if you asked Williamsport how they felt about private schools, they probably don't love them. And if you asked Milton how they felt about Meadowbrook Christian, they probably don't love it. Like, it happens more than we ever realize. And here's the other part of it too. It's not so much when it happens, it's the not knowing. Like, there's a lot of coaches in North Central Pennsylvania that have no idea what their roster is going to look like the next year because they're not sure which 8th grader is going to go to Lourdes or Newman or Meadowbrook Christian or this online school or something. Like, there's a lot of coaches who don't know. It's more prominent than we realize.
I would say the coaches at Shamokin hate Southern Columbia a lot more than they hate Lourdes.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But like, look what happens. Like, I mean, we can. How far do you want me to touch that one? Like, if a public school was given the same flexibility as a private school, they could do a lot of great things too. That's all I'm saying.
One in each sport, and the rest of them would be
yeah.
And that's not good. To create one bully on the block.
It's not about creating one bully on the block.
But that's what would happen.
That's what you think would happen.
That's exactly what would happen.
It depends on how competitive our other schools going to be. Private schools have to compete with kids they're trying to recruit. So why wouldn't public schools be willing to have the same level of recruitment?
They would be able to have the same
exactly
level.
That's the point.
But there's a difference.
What you do with that is up to you. Like, how hard do you go out after your boosters? Like, how hard do you go after recruiting? How hard do you go after kids? Like, that's what it's about.
No. But there's a reason. Like in our area, there's a reason that people go to public schools as opposed to private schools, because there are more opportunities for them at the public schools. The public schools are more funded. The public schools have a better academic reputation.
Sure.
So, but it's different if you can just pick from public school to public school totally based on your sport. Like, every wrestler in the world would go to the best coach. Every track person would go to the best, where it's individualized and it's like, I can't
But you act like it's going to be Noah's Ark. And what I'm saying to you is, like, it's not a flood. Like, not everybody's going to do that.
No, but you take the best one off each school.
Not everyone's going to do that. Like, you even said it. It's hard to pick up your house and move it. It's hard to drive your kid. Like, not everybody's going to take advantage.
You're saying they can just pick.
What I am saying is, if you're not going to divide them, what I am saying is that you have to have the public schools have to have the same flexibility as the private schools. Otherwise, the whole system makes no sense. It doesn't.
I disagree. So here, I'll give you my best example. So if you're a high school pitcher in in Lycoming County,
yes,
and Mike Messina is the pitching coach at Montoursville,
yes,
and you're good, and we've had some good. There's a kid at Selinsgrove that's going Division I. There's a kid at Central that's going Division I. Yes. So if you are a good bona fide Division I pitcher in Central Pennsylvania, and you could go, and Mike Messina could be your pitching coach, wouldn't they all go to Montoursville?
No, but that's the point that we're making. A few would, yes, because of the points you just made. But there are probably probably a majority that would not. Because like you said, it's not that simple. Like, it's like, it doesn't, like, they're not, like, they're going to have to figure out how to get there. They're going to have to figure out their lifestyle. Like, parents can't just pick up their house and move. Parents are employed. Like, they have lives. Like, so to your point, like, will a few do it? Absolutely. And my point being is good for them. Like, good for them.
But in baseball, if you're doing it for the good of the sport, in baseball, if the two best pitchers from within a 30-mile radius go play for the same team, now nobody can beat that team.
That's not true, because the school in the next district over could beat that team.
Well, they can. Yeah. Somewhere across the state there could be a good one, but locally you've just killed it.
Now here's the funny part.
Baseball locally.
I haven't killed baseball locally. What I've done is I have allowed the people – I haven't. What I've done is I've allowed the people who want to take it a step further. Some people won't. Like, some people will be like, no, we like our school. We like our community. We like what we're doing. Fantastic. What I am saying is, for those 2 or 3 kids who decide, you know what, it would be best for me to take advantage of that opportunity, they're now going to meet their ceiling, significantly higher chance of it being that way than not. Like, they're going to get better coaching. They're going to get a better situation. And they might go to the next district over and get pounded because there's 2 or 3 pitchers better than them. I don't know that. But you're looking at it, you are looking at it from the school team aspect. And what I am here and what I am here to tell you is, from an individual standpoint, this stuff is getting individualized. Kids are going to make money individually. They are going to have a following, and they're going. So from an individual standpoint, how do I compete with that? How do I compete with that?
Wait. Hold on. Who is you?
Like if I'm a public school coach, how do I compete with a private school or a private institution that is allowing the player to individualize and put himself first? How do I, as a public school coach, compete with that?
Here's why.
Because I don't have.
Hold on. You just let me answer.
I don't have the flexibility.
You just asked the question. Let me answer. So we'll take the local areas. Football, you don't have to compete because they don't have it.
But football is more of a team sport.
Wrestling, you don't have to compete because they don't have it. Track, you don't have to compete because they don't. So the only sport we're really, really talking about here is basketball and maybe a little bit of baseball because now Newman has got good at baseball.
I think football is heading more that direction, but go ahead.
I could argue in parts of the state, yes, but not everywhere. Certainly not here.
I could argue that in our area, football is number one for this situation.
In Southern Columbia, yes, but not because
the old Berwick teams, dude. It is in our area. It is synonymous with public schools acting like private schools for the purpose of football.
Just one.
So to act, I disagree.
So let's go to that perfect example. So what has Southern Columbia done to local football in their division? There were teams that would make the playoffs and wouldn't go play because Southern Columbia has pilfered all the best talent from all the local schools, and they have become state caliber, and they've ruined local competition. So as the local school district, I'm not worried about whether this one kid gets to maximize or this one kid gets to maximize. I'm worried about having reasonable local balance. And just like when you go to the playground to play pickup basketball, if there are three teams and one of them's stacked and the other two are terrible, there's no fun.
It already happens. They're just called private schools. It already happens. The situation you're describing happens every day.
Let's see. It doesn't it does in basketball and not here. But it doesn't happen here in any other sport but basketball.
I disagree. I disagree. It happens in football. It happens in football every year. They're just not blank prep. They're just not blank Catholic. Like they're different names. They're public schools underneath, they're behind the curtain. It still happens.
Not very much.
Okay.
I can name two or three significant football players that have moved away from Montoursville in the last 30 years.
Okay.
And they're good. That's why I remember. But
but that's my point is it's not a flood. It's going to be one or two or three people. That's
correct.
The whole point I'm making
too. If you just open and say you can go wherever you want, it will be a flood.
I disagree. I don't think it will be a flood. And we're having two different conversations because you are more concerned about the area and the competitiveness within local teams in the area. And what I am saying to you is I am concerned about the individual athlete. They're going to do these things whether we adjust or we don't.
Hold on. And that's where you're wrong. They can't. If you're an individual kid and you're at a public school, you can't just go to the public school across the river just because you feel like it.
No, but they can go to the private school across the river if they feel like it.
But the private school across the river doesn't have a football team or it doesn't have a wrestling team.
Doesn't have yet. Or there's another school that's already doing it. So it doesn't matter.
Newman ain't adding a football team.
That's not that you're taking an entire country and an entire state and you're putting it into one of the smallest places in America and using that as your example.
We're NorthcentralPA.
I understand that, but you're tucking it into this one thing. And what I'm saying is we'll be behind the eight ball then, and that's fine. But we're already it is going to be almost impossible. The individualism that is about to occur with these athletes getting paid, it is almost going to be impossible for a public school to really compete in the state of Pennsylvania. It is happening underneath our feet. It was already hard. It was already impossible.
So when Dominic Bragalone comes along, if this system's in place 4 years ago, 5 years ago, however long Dominic was here.
I don't know, though, because did Dominic have a following?
Where's he going to? Oh, my God. He was he set national records, I think.
Just because you set national records, though, doesn't mean that you have a brand or a following. You see the difference.
But here's my point, and that's a different topic. So
it's not. That's what we're talking about.
Where is he going to play football?
He went to Lehigh.
No. But I mean in high school. When he's at South Williamsport, which is by no means a big dog on the state.
Okay.
It's just a small school here in central Pennsylvania. So when Dominic
25 years ago, he would have went to Berwick. 5 years ago, he'd go to Southern. Today,
he didn't go to Southern.
What's about to happen? Why would he? South Williamsport was a good school, a good football team. They had a great season. Why would he go to Southern?
But hold on. Before he got there, they weren't doing well. Like, it wasn't like, so why didn't he go to Southern then?
Because in single and double A football, if you have a workhorse, like if you have one dude that can like take you, we've seen it over and over and over again, whether it's a Bragalone or a Datras, whoever it may be. If you've got that one dude, you can be really competitive in 1A or 2A before they expanded the divisions, the classifications.
Correct.
Okay. So why, again, so it's not about that.
Exactly. But like, so
we're just talking in circles at this point.
No, because you're like, if he would have gone to a private school, and I'm like, which one? Yep. And I keep saying
any of them, any private school he wants to in the state of Pennsylvania,
and he could have then, but there's none here for him to go to.
You're fine.
So he has to stay at Southside.
No, you are correct. Everything is fine. Public schools will be A-OK. They don't need to worry about anything. I'm sure it's been a fair system the last 10 years. Why wouldn't it be a fair system the next 10?
Now
you're exactly
now
right.
You just spun it. Now
you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Long live the private school and high school athletics. Private schools are very good for children. That's my opinion. I don't disagree with that. From an academic standpoint, if a private school is better off for your kid, 100% agree with that. From the athletic side of things, there is a very clear gap between what the private schools are allowed to do and what the public schools are allowed to do. There are great public school programs around the country, in our state, and in our area. However, for the majority of the country, private schools have a huge advantage athletically over the public schools competition-wise.
I would say to that is like, all schools are good for children if they fit.
Yes.
That there are certain schools that have certain fits, and some kids would be a disaster in a private school. Some kids are perfect for a private school, and vice versa.
Yes, correct. Do you see people fighting back against any mandates? I would argue they did last time. And I think that's been kind of my whole point, my 10-second spiel. Like, I don't think participation is going to be great this fall and winter in mandates. I don't.
And that's why we touched on this before we got into the sports thing. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if they don't mandate it, if they strongly recommend it and say this is what the CDC says, because there's lots of, it's not just little kids who fight against authority. There's lots of people who are like, you do whatever you think is best. And it would be interesting to see if the two roads.
Yes. And then he shouldn't consider, I believe we're talking about Governor Cuomo. He shouldn't consider it. He should just plain be arrested or removed. I mean, there's a point there is maybe it shouldn't even necessarily be his decision. I mean, that's a completely different conversation from what we had earlier. Depending on the legalities of it, like maybe it isn't even his choice.
That's something we didn't touch on. I hadn't thought about it till this was just brought up, because it was the Attorney General. Like, this isn't some newspaper reporter who dug this stuff up. Like, the Attorney General is a little bit of authority. So I wonder if there's a possibility of charges coming maybe he gets charged by dinner time. Who knows? I never thought of that.
Yeah, maybe it's not even his choice to begin with, whether he should consider it.
Could you see him going out in handcuffs being like, I won't resign? They're like, we don't care anymore. You just got arrested.
Right. You just got arrested. It's not your choice anymore. All right. Nice. Long live the private school.
I will do my best to try to enlighten you again tomorrow.
I cannot wait for all of Montoursville to just rain down on you since you are now the king of the private school.
I am not. I don't understand. I am protecting.
I'm happy for you.
The way it works around here is fine. It is fine. And maybe the issue is that, like, people in Philadelphia, people in Pittsburgh, I know when I lived in Baltimore, there was a huge public school, private school. I get that. Here, there's not.
It's a big state.
Every kid that grows up in Jersey Shore is planning on being a Bulldog his whole life. And nobody gets to 8th grade and it's like, well, if I want to focus on baseball, I go here. If I want to focus on wrestling, I go here.
I disagree. I think it happens behind back doors more than you ever know.
And don't get me wrong. I'm not naive enough to know. I know of people who've moved for sports, but it is a life-changing decision for the parents. There would be a lot more of them if it was just like, all you have to do is enroll and drive. My parents are driving me to this school. They'll drive me 5 more minutes across this bridge, and I'm at another school.
Yeah. No, listen, you still have to enroll and you still have to live in the school district. You're acting like I'm saying people should just be able
you just
to
said it was open.
Yes, open, meaning the transfer rules are open, meaning that if I move to Montoursville tomorrow, I should be allowed to play in the playoffs that year.
Oh, I didn't know that's what you meant. This is like arguing with a woman. Like
it's not.
It was like a half hour. I didn't even know what you're talking about. I thought you meant you could live anywhere and go anywhere.
For half an hour, I tried to explain to you that you didn't, like you were arguing something different than me.
You made your case very stupidly.
That's fine. I'll live
now I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree as much anymore.
Thank you.
We'll pick this up after we conclude the show.
I'm sure everyone is riveted to hear part 2. All right. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news.
You suck.
I'm okay with that. Heather says I didn't explain my point well, so there you go. So that's
wait,
fine.
what happened?
Heather said I didn't explain my point well, so that's fine.
I'm okay.
So that's okay. I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with
Thank
that
you,
too.
Heather. I don't even disagree with you.
We're just thinking out loud.
We are just thinking out loud. Everybody, go have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.